Okay, so I'm going to be building today another one of my rebuilt 67.5s, but this one's going to be special. I'm making this out of alkaline batteries. So what makes that so special? Well, I'm going to charge more for them, obviously, because they're alkaline batteries. They're more expensive to make. This one's going to come with a higher price tag. It's going to be $89 plus shipping, but it will last a long time in your vintage radio. And again, it'll be available for sale on eBay if you have a vintage radio that you wish to power. The first step in this project is to tape 6 cells together to make them as stable as possible. So we've accomplished that. I create shorting blocks by taking apart 9-volt connectors. You'll see what one looks like in a moment when I solder that. The reason why I do that is I can't solder alkaline batteries directly. These terminals are soldered internally, and the heat makes that come apart, and it ruins the battery. So don't try to solder alkalines. So there's one shorting block completed, and we're going to show you that we have multiplication of voltage. So hold on. So as you see, we're in the 22.5 scale, and we are now showing in the good range. We're low on the good range, but that's to be expected because 99 is 18, not 22.5. But it just goes to show you that the multiplication of voltage is occurring. Okay, so now we have our second shorting block installed. On the 30-volt scale, we show as good. We're going to continue. All right, so I got shorting block, 2 open ends. I can connect to the terminal or to the next battery. Another shorting block's going here. We're going to keep going. Okay, we've got our bones here. The pack itself is built. That's an alkaline pack, Energizer alkaline. So it's going to give long life and good service in this radio. As seen, as shown a million times, this is what one of these cells is originally made out of. And guess what? That's what's inside of most alkaline batteries. Cells that look like that. The difference is that for an alkaline battery like these, normally you would have 6 cells. So, 6 times 7, right? And you've got a couple more cells in here, but it doesn't matter. We are close enough in voltage that it'll work. So 42 individual cells here and 45 over here. So there's the difference, 45 here. So this would have had a starting voltage of exactly 67.5, whereas mine has a starting voltage of 63. But as you'll see, I'll bring out the digital voltmeter. It's going to be more than that. This has no purpose. You could salvage the wire, but I now have plenty of wire, so into the trash box it goes. We have our first connection made. And now our second connection is made. Okay, so while trying to install that into the box, I ripped that box, but I have more than one box. This right here is my waiting to be rebuilt pile. This is the box that I ripped. As you can see the rip right there. It can be glued back together. It can be rebuilt at a later date. This one I would not sell anymore. This one would be for personal use. It will still look good in a radio. It wouldn't be obvious. It's not obvious in this picture. So none of these are rebuilt here. These are all rebuilt here. This whole pile is a pile of working batteries. These are not rebuildable. These are collectible. You could probably drill them out and repack them with zinc chloride from a couple of modern cells, but way too much work. It's much easier to duplicate them, as I have duplicated these. And if I had somebody who could 3D scan for me, I could end up with all these labels here and duplicate them as well. But yeah, these are easily duplicated, so I don't bother to try to think of a way to rebuild them. Though there are several possibilities. You could hollow this out and get a C cell in there. There's a lot of things that you could do. But I'm not going to do any of those things. So we're back in here with this, and while that glue's drying, I'm going to clean up a little bit. So we'll be right back. All right, we built in March 2025 Alkaline. So as promised, I busted out the digital voltmeter, and we'll see what we have going on there. Okay, so we know that we have 7 9-volt alkaline batteries inside that box. So we would expect that the digital voltage to be 63 volts, wouldn't we? That would be the math, right? But most of the time, these cells, the individual cells in those batteries, have a starting voltage of 1.6. Which means that each 9-volt battery is around 9.6 volts. And 9.6 times 7 is 67.2. We're supposed to have 67.5. Let's see what we have. Either way, this will beautifully play any vintage radio that you put it in. And I got a starting voltage of 65.9, which is still plenty. I expect it to be slightly higher than that, but it's still more than what it should be, right? 7 times 9 we said was 63, so we are above that. We're almost at 66 volts. And either way, this is still going to adequately play any tube radio that requires a 67.5 volt battery. Those radios will play down to 45 volts normally, sometimes even lower. I've experimented with that to see before myself, and I can guarantee that this battery will absolutely play a vintage radio. In fact, I can put it in a vintage radio to show it.
Weight loss clinic and lost 23 pounds.
So here's a vintage radio. This vintage radio requires, or not doesn't require, but this vintage radio calls for a 90 volt battery. So what do you think is going to happen? I already know it's going to work. I'll show you though. But we're going to install that battery because I've adapted this radio so they could use any type of battery I'd like to put in there that has this type of connection, no matter what the spacing or the voltage. So we're going to throw that in there and we'll see. So what I had done, this required a large pack battery that was a combination style battery that had a 7.5 volt for the filaments, and it had a 90 volt for the plate, for the tubes, for the high voltage. I adopted it initially. I didn't have a connector that fit this battery. I found this battery on eBay. So I made this little jumper here. It can snap on and snap off, as you see that. So let's hook up our 65 volt battery and see if she plays. So there you go. So if you're worried about that 67.5 volt battery not running your 67.5 volt radio because it's a little bit under 67.5 volts, don't worry at all. It's running my 90 volt radio right there. So there you go. Let's put back in our 90. So another rebuilt battery, another working radio. And if anybody's interested in these things, just let me know. And I can always assist. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like. It helps me a lot, greatly. Thank you.